I'm joined today by Ken Stanley, who is an associate professor of computer science at the University of Central Florida, specializing in artificial intelligence and machine learning. He's the inventor of the NEAT algorithm and also the co-author of the new book, Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned. It's so great to have you, Ken. And, recently we've talked about some of the comments made by everybody from Stephen Hawking to Elon Musk, sort of expressing some level of concern about the future of artificial intelligence. And I think sort of a general place to start with you is the conversation about AI being good or bad, good or evil, is that even the right question or to be asking or conversation to be having, or is that in and of itself a sort of misdirected question?
Yeah, so when people ask that question, I think it helps to kind of distinguish whether we're talking about, today or the potential future, or far future. And I think today, right now, I mean, if we're talking about the AIs themselves, it's certainly not good or evil. I mean, it's just a program. It doesn't have its own personal motivations, and it's not a person at all. So it's really a question of, are the people using it good or evil, perhaps? So in terms of its use, of course, it can be put to bad use. And in that sense, today, there's always the danger of someone using technology for ill. But in the long run, I think that's what these various commentaries are really about, is in the long run, can something or more sinister come out of this? Like maybe the AI itself does something sinister on its own volition or something like that. And I think that's very speculative. It's not that we can't talk about it, and we should be aware of even remote possibilities that could be a threat to humanity. But it's really just speculation. There's no current technology that really shows that that's really likely to happen anytime soon. But yeah, sure, we should always be aware and obviously trying to steer away from any scenario like that if it did look like it could become possible.
One of the specific scenarios that now is getting more and more attention is when we think about autonomous vehicles and these sort of Sophie's choice type scenarios or trolley problem type scenarios start to come up. Oh, if the vehicle is to decide whether to continue straight on the road and run over 10 people or to drive off the road, saving those 10 people but killing one civilian on the sidewalk, how should an autonomous vehicle be programmed? Is that type of problem one that you believe is going to be addressed as autonomous vehicles become more and more advanced?
Yeah, actually, I think that will have to be addressed. It is a really interesting problem because, in the past that might have just been sort of abstract philosophy, but it's going to be a practical question if we're really going to have purely autonomous vehicles on the road. Someone somewhere is going to make a decision, who programs this vehicle, on what to do in various kind of moral choice scenarios. Should you sacrifice the driver of the car to save, a school bus full of children? It's a pretty impossible question to answer. I'm entirely unsure how something like that should be programmed from an ethical perspective. But I think that we're going to have to confront questions like that. And maybe moral philosophers will actually have another job where they could contribute something here, because it might be more the kind of question that they can answer.
What, in your mind, are the most important moral and ethical questions as you continue to work on and develop more and more advanced artificial intelligence? Are they these types of questions that we've talked about so far? Or if not, I would love to hear from you what you, as someone who works in the field, sees as the paramount moral and ethical questions.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's kind of a spectrum of moral questions. I mean, at one end of the spectrum are these kind of sci-fi scenarios of the machines taking over or becoming evil or something like that. I think that's a remote concern at the moment. And probably, your second question is closer to today's kinds of concerns, like these difficult choices that have to be made sometimes where life and death could actually hang in the balance. And society is going to have to grapple with that. And it's not clear how we're going to do that. It's going to involve the legal profession. It's not just going to involve technologists, because we have to decide how to attribute blame when something goes wrong, and who exactly is going to be held responsible when it's a machine's choice. So those are problems, right, that are not necessarily right now, but maybe coming in the near future. And I think another kind of aspect of morality when it comes to AI is the effect on the economy. When you think about jobs being replaced through automation, that might be like the most immediate concern. It's already happening. And you can imagine that in the not so far future, something like if there could be something like a maid bot that can basically fix up your hotel room just as well as a human or something like that, then a huge class of people could be out of jobs. And it's not totally clear that this is a bad or good because, I mean, in theory, the benefits might outweigh the costs, and new jobs can open up, and then the savings can be used to facilitate better opportunities for people. But
Well,
how that
that's a
all
real, I
shakes
mean,
out is
and correct me if
unclear.
I'm wrong, in what I've read, historically, every time there was some new technology that eliminated jobs, it opened up new areas of industry altogether that resulted in a net gain of jobs. But from what I've been reading over the last 18 to 24 months, we seem to sort of be entering a period where the net impact of technology is starting to be a loss of jobs. And that seems to be a big change over the last 150 years.
Yeah, I've heard these different arguments as well, and it looks unclear. I mean, this is probably something new for civilization, where machines really start taking over jobs that took intelligence and coordination. And I don't think we know exactly what the implications are. It would be nice if it's true that it just creates new industries and that sort of just makes up for it. And I think clearly, like you said, that has historically happened. But will it continue to happen, especially as the AI becomes dramatically smarter? It's not completely clear. And economists probably have to think about this and what the implications are going to be for our society.
I'd love for you to talk a little bit about some of the sort of exciting opportunities that exist in the world of AI. Anything from the possibility of human brains being able to sort of group learn skills, for example, or acquire knowledge. What are some of the things that are exciting right now in your field?
Yeah, so one thing that maybe is less talked about is the possibility that artificial intelligence and machine learning could assist in creative endeavors. I mean, we hear a lot about AI for automation or for problem solving, or it answers your question or something like that. But what you hear less about, and what I think is also exciting, is the idea that the computer can assist the human in creating something that otherwise neither of them could have been able to create alone. And I think that AI is moving in a direction that is going to facilitate that kind of collaboration more and more. So, in other words, what I mean is, for example, you might not know how to design furniture, you're not an expert, but with the right kind of assistance, you might be able to design furniture just as good as what the experts currently design today. Or cars or houses or art or music, and this kind of technology can potentially crowdsource, so in other words leverage the input of many laymen who don't actually know anything about the area in which they're creating, but the computer basically plugs the holes and leverages the collective implicit wisdom of the crowd, and then you end up with a product that's legitimate. And this kind of technology, I think, is pretty interesting because it liberates us as humans to participate in creating things that otherwise we would have just had to leave to the experts in the past.
I'm curious as you talk about all of these possibilities and think about also AIs that can themselves sort of learn from their experience, and I don't even know if experience is the right word to be using there. When we talk about the term sentient, do we even know enough yet to intelligently comment on whether self-learning AIs could be what we consider sentient in some sense?
Yeah, I think so. I'm guessing that a lot of scientists, if they were confronted with that question, would say something like, well, we have to define our terms, and basically it's ill-defined what this really means. But I'll try not to dodge it in that way.
Okay.
Let's say we don't define our terms and we just say, okay, sentience is a big deal, and most people have kind of a sense of what they mean. So just take it as just whatever it feels like it means. It's something big. I think that basically what we feel about sentience is far, far beyond current technology. There's not a hint of it in current AI technology. So we're talking about science fiction. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. And it, you can debate about whether why would it not be possible? That's kind of an interesting question. Like if our brain is effectively just a computational device, which some people believe, then in theory, I guess something that's a computer could someday just do whatever our brain does, and that includes sentience apparently as a side effect of whatever our brain does. So maybe it's possible. But then again, we really don't know what's going on in the brain at that level. That's just far beyond our current understanding. So I would want to be circumspect and sort of leave it open and say, let's be humble and admit that we don't really know what's going on with sentience right now, and it's beyond our current capabilities. But if AI achieves its ultimate ambitious dreams, then it's certainly a possibility that could happen someday.
I'll remind the audience we've been speaking with Ken Stanley, who's an associate professor of computer science at the University of Central Florida. The new book is Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned. Thanks so much for talking to us about this. Very interesting.
Dave, could I add one other thing? Would that
Yes,
be
please.
just about the ethical side? Because you asked a number of questions about the moral issues that are coming up, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to note that like there some people would say that we should perhaps put the brakes on because we're heading into a danger zone. But the thing I just wanted to add here is that, in my opinion, that's probably not the right way to address if there is going to be a problem like this. Because really, if you try to put the brakes on, which basically means regulation, like telling people they can't think about something, then the only people thinking about it are going to be the people who are not ethical, obviously, because they're going to be the people who don't care about what the government or whatever body is saying. Or countries that are rogue are going to be the ones who are investigating this issue, but the countries that are well intentioned are going to just basically give up on it. And that's just going to lead to a worse scenario. So I think that really what we need, if we're going to worry about the moral implications of AI in the long run, which I think is worth doing, even though I don't think we should be alarmist about it. But what we need, if we're going to do that, is to try to foster a culture of morality within AI, so that basically we encourage people who are involved in the field, like myself, to steer it in a direction that's ethical. And I think that's really the only way forward, because historically we've never seen the ability to kind of stop the march of technology. It just hasn't happened in history. It just keeps moving. And so what we can do is say, look, if there's a culture of morality that's sort of organic within the community, then any kind of person who wants to do something that's bad or ill-intentioned is probably not going to be able to get the resources and support they need to do what they want, because usually really big projects require a lot of resources and the coordination of a lot of people. And so we'll be able to keep them out organically, basically from within the community and from getting access to that kind of resource, as opposed to kind of top-down regulation, which I think is just futility and probably a lost cause.
Yeah, no, hard to argue against that. Ken Stanley, really a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.